Really grateful. It's you guys are the hardcore people. There's Cardi, hello. This is a great event. It's really fantastic because it feels like a reunion. From the moment I set foot here, I've met somebody, had a conversation, and realized how we are connected within 5 seconds. So thank you, Partos, for inviting us, for making the space. Thank you, Wilde Ganze, for making the Wereld Café together with vice versa. And thank you, hardcore, committed people trying to make world change. Please come to the front, otherwise we feel very cold and lonely, like we're talking into a dark hole. So if you can come to the front, we would really, really appreciate it. The reason I keep saying you're hardcore is it is Friday afternoon. By this time, people are having a beer, drinking some wine, decompressing from a very busy week, because this is also a very busy period for many of us, but you guys are here, and that is amazing. There are also people online joining us. If you're there, I'm waving at you. I don't know where I wave at, but I'm sure you'll see that I'm waving at you. We have a wonderful guest here with us, and we're going to be talking about innovative, effective, impactful ways of keeping people engaged, having a support base, having fans, people who understand what you're doing and why they're doing it. And all of this as a contribution to global solidarity. Yes, this is the Wereld Café, and it's called The Future of Global Solidarity. Oh, no, that's something else. Well, in any case, we're talking about global solidarity here today, and we want to know from you what you think global solidarity is from the perspective of your organizations. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you, maybe I should first tell you my name. My name is Amma van Danzig. And when I was little, people couldn't say my name. So they started calling me Amma Fantastic, which, I mean, it could have gone so wrong. Fantastic's not bad, so I'll take it. You can call me Amma Fantastic if you can't say Van Danzig. I get to talk with you about how we can effectively, impactfully create a broad base of support. How can we create fans? How can we seduce people to join our movements? How can we grow a constituency? How can we ensure that our governments continue to actually invest in international solidarity? So we have two of our panelists here. They'll introduce themselves. They're grown people, they can do that themselves. And we have two panelists online. They will show, oh, there they are. Am I looking at you? Or am I looking at you when I do this? Well, it's okay. Our panelists are here, Jana and, can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay, great. So we have two of our panelists here, and we're going to have a discussion. We're going to, if you know the circle of Simon Sinek, you know that you should always start with why. So they will start by introducing themselves and telling us why they do what they do. We start with the beginning of the circle, and then we'll move to what they do and how they do it, so the strategies. And hopefully, at the end of our time here together, within less than an hour, we will have loads of tips on how to build a fan base, how to be together, how to express international solidarity through our organizations. But it's not like you guys don't know, or you people, we don't say guys anymore, you people don't know anything at all about fan base. So we wanted to do the very famous Mentimeter. Yay! So this is the opportunity for you to bring out your phones, don't check your messages, just go to www.menti.com. Yes. And I was here 2 days ago and I had to do this, and also then I felt like I was reading lottery numbers. I'm going to sit down so that I feel a little bit less like I'm reading lottery numbers and more like I'm Oprah Winfrey. So the number is 53973967. You fill that in, and the question is, what does international solidarity mean to your organization? People don't waste time in this room. There are answers. So, the winning answer, let's say at the moment, okay, a fan base that lives solidarity through voting and consuming. So, you know, conscious consumption choices, conscious voting choices. I can imagine it's a bit difficult because it might mean everything at the same time. That's not an option, so you have to make a choice. A fan base that shares and likes stories, a fan base that participates in petitions and demonstrations, so very supportive. Okay, so your fan base is really about one that lives, well, that's really clearly the outlier. So the choice is really about a fan base that makes choices. So it's really great. Not that anything else is not great, by the way. A fan base that gives on a regular basis is actually also, because the revolution must be funded. And sometimes commitment is expressed through money. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, seems like those comments made a difference. They've got 5 points now. So as I said, we have our panelists here with us. Thank you so much for participating in this. There are more opportunities to participate by asking questions. I'm not here on my own. I didn't organize this. There's an entire team. There's a technical team up there that will help with moderating the questions. You will also have opportunities to ask questions. There will be someone will magically appear with a mic. There, as soon as I said it, she appeared to help you ask questions as well. That will be later on in our segment. So we are here with Fadili Magia. This is the only time I'm going to use your last names because I don't like to feel like I'm failing. Fadili Magia, did I say it right, your last name? Yes. Is here. He's the director of Sub-Sahara Advisory Panel. He's here all the way from Wales. I bet you didn't guess that. Online, we have Jana Brewer. She's the co-founder and director of Fine Arts. Up there, please give us a wave. Yeah, there's Jana. Thank you, Jana. We also have Hunas Behesti. Did I say it right? Thank you. Whew. From RNW Media joining us. And we have Surabi Srivastava. All that time I was talking to you, I should just ask you how you say your last name. Also from RNW Media. So they will be doing this together. And as I said, they will be sharing their experiences and giving us tips on how we can engage people more. So, as I said, Fadili will introduce himself. Can you tell us more, Fadili? How did you come up with the idea of what it is that you do? Why do you do it? And why is it important?
Big questions. And I brought the weather from Wales as well. There's rain outside, which I didn't expect. But yeah, nice to be here. Thank you so much for introducing me. I wish I came up with the idea of the organization. I think I'll be, triumphantly saying this is my idea and I've come up with it, but certainly not. It's an idea, the organization itself, and I was asked this question, what are you advising on? Because we're called Sub-Sahara Advisory Panel. And the answer to that really is the founding members of the organization, who are members from the African community, the diaspora community in Wales, came together and said, we are, as diaspora living in Wales, we don't have a lot of connections with the development sector or the international solidarity sector. Many of the people there have either worked as development practitioners in countries, communities they come from, have academic backgrounds and various kind of works, really. But in many ways, they're not involved or they're not part of the development agenda within the Wales, UK environment. And also on top of it is also to say, many people do go home, and this is the narrative I guess we get to hear quite a lot, and spend 2-3 weeks and, they become experts in something, whether it's gender or health and so on. And we've lived in these places, so we are experts of our own lives. And therefore, we're able to advise on what needs to be done with our communities, hence the advisory. So it's really kind of, the organization itself the purpose is to connect the diaspora communities with the development sector in Wales, but also at the same time, and through that is really bringing knowledge, experience, expertise to the sector. Through that, basically, you're able to bring diaspora who have connections in countries and communities where NGOs are working. But also beyond that, the organization has started to support diaspora communities who are doing their own development initiatives. So this is providing training, support, etc. But in many ways, it's that lack of connection between the sector and the diaspora community in Wales. And through that, I don't know if this is the time to play the video as well. Yeah, there's a video I want to play, and it kind of touches into, I guess, a lot of questions that comes within diaspora communities, which is to do with identity, which is to do with belonging, and especially touching very much into the last couple of years and the conversation around Black Lives Matter, and I guess the movements behind it. Sorry, it just started.
Hello. 1 pint, please. Sure. Thank you. My skin is my logo, don't get it twisted. I'm young, black, and gifted. I'm sorry I didn't fit your stereotype, but I wasn't listening. A couple times I've been a victim of racism. But it doesn't matter because you're not racist, because your auntie, sister's cousin's boyfriend is black. See, quarantine living got me thinking how this year feels different. And we can see who's woke and who's ignorant and who spoke and who didn't and who thought my life didn't matter. Cause it does, so let's cut the banter. And I hope we're on the same page, same chapter. See, I'm thinking about uplifting the people around me. It took me 22 years, but I finally found me. We ain't trying to beef the man there, just allow it, G. Sorry that I kind of went off track. Let me run this back and talk to you why I love being black. Let me tell you one of my favorite reasons. We dance that we've got freedom. Even though our ancestors were whipped and beaten, they still managed to find joy. Turn the music up, it's our time, we're making noise. There's a whole system we're trying to dismantle and destroy, but we're told we need to be grateful. Now, I'll tell you more, but it's getting kind of late. But we can arrange another time, another place, you know, who, what, where, when. Just make sure I gotta be out by 10. Oh, and P.S. Ignore the BS about Black History Month. Black History Month is every month because we're making history every day. That's a flex, that's a stunt, and if you don't like that, you know, shut your mouth.
Be very brief. It's just the video kind of talks a lot about the foundation of the organizations and really exactly what we are trying to either dismantle or address or raising awareness. And our project varies from international solidarity movements all the way to community health projects as well. And the person I have to give credit, the person you saw on the video there, his name is Kongolo, Adam Kongolo. And he took part on the project we did a few years ago to look at creating imagination forums where Western views are not dominant. I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, this is really a very powerful video, just sitting in a pub and reminding us all that his skin is not his, it is his logo. So no logos, and really the importance of connecting with diaspora communities in country, also to connect with the people whose lives you're trying to impact. And thank you for this very creative way of making this succinct point. And that was just the introduction, guys. Imagine what's going to happen next. We are going over to Jana. your organization combines art and activism as well to engage people. So can you tell us a little bit about how you started with this?
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person, but it's lovely to be sharing this space with all of you. So yeah, my name is Jana. I am the co-founder and executive director of an organization called Fine Acts. It is a global nonprofit creative studio for social impact. But this organization was actually born out of my huge frustration, first as an investigative journalist, and later on as an activist. So as a journalist, I would go, and spend months investigating issues, often undercover, and I would be, publishing these damning reports, and typically nothing real would happen. And this would happen, again and again and again. And this led me to activism, like this need, this drive for real impact, for real change, led me to human rights activism, where I established the campaigns department in one of the leading nonprofits here in Bulgaria. But going to this sector, I found, people who are very much stuck in their old ways, very much, in a way resistant to experimentation and innovation. And me being very, young and not knowing really what to do in this field, I started experimenting, and I started experimenting in collaborating with different creatives when designing my own campaigns. And I saw that every time when I would be collaborating with artists, these would be the campaigns that would, grab people by the throat. These would be the campaigns that would make people care. These would be the campaigns that would be actually effective. And this was years ago, and I decided to translate this, personal experience of mine into a global organization that is Fine Acts. What we do with Fine Acts is, on the one hand, we design and implement creative campaigns on a range of human rights and environmental issues around the world, but we also help organizations again, around the world, design their own campaigns, or we train them in embracing art, creativity, and hope as tools for social impact. And there are several things I would say that make us unique. On the one hand, we're global, so we work across geographies in collaboration with local nonprofits. Let's say in 2021 alone, we commissioned over 160 artists from 46 countries and had exhibitions in over 20 countries. The other thing is that we are multi-issue, so we're not focusing only on one issue, but let's say, so far we've produced in collaboration with thousands of artists for the past 7 years since we've been established, works on racial justice, climate change, climate justice, women's rights, LGBT rights, freedom of expression, hate speech, and many, many, many others. The third thing that makes us recognizable is that we work across art mediums. So even right now, at this moment, we are producing public art interventions, videos, installations, photo art series, books, board games, and collections of illustrations. But I would say that something that is most specific about us is our approach. Everything that we do is rooted in play and in hope and in openness. So openness, because most of what we produce is open license and free to use by others. Hope, and I hope that I have time to expand on this later because this is key. But hope to us is not just a feeling, but it is a pragmatic strategy that can be applied to any campaign. And finally, play, because we work in a very specific way. We work at the intersection of advocacy and art, but also with tech and science. And we practice something that we call playtivism, which is our concept referring to creating spaces for multidisciplinary play and experimentation in activism.
Well, it sounds really very incredible what you're doing and how you moved from journalism, which should be about democracy, objectivity, and truth, to actually other values like hope and play. And I would love to ask you a lot of questions about that shift, but that's not what we're here for today. I would like to thank you for these introductory remarks and ask you, Hunas, from RNW, because you are here together, but you get to do this part. So your organization uses the power of social media to do storytelling, to engage especially young people. So can you tell us a little bit more about why you do this? Why is this important?
Thank you, Alma. So here's another journalist. I grew up in Iran, and that context has made me a feminist and a human rights activist. Living in Iran as a woman has exposed me to all kinds of repressions and challenges, and has obviously later defined my career path. I know from personal experience how it is to miss my basic human rights, and how important it is to have access to alternative spaces then, where we can speak our mind, discuss important topics, or simply find reliable information. And that's why I now work with RNW Media. RNW Media is an international digital media organization. We use digital media for social change. And that means that we build on the importance of online spaces in young people's lives and respond to their challenges by offering digital media solutions. So these solutions are designed to enhance their rights and amplify their voices. So what we really have is a community of young people who can then, through conversation, develop an informed perspective and lead the process of change in their societies. Now, when talking about online communities, it is important to keep in mind that these spaces need to be safe, inclusive, and engaging. Three elements that are extremely important to create meaningful youth participation. So young people need to know that they are safe in an online environment to speak their mind. They need to know that their voice is included in important conversations. And here specifically, I'm talking about minorities and marginalized groups such as women and LGBT communities. And they need to be exposed to multiple perspectives that are at the same time engaging to them. So we co-create online communities and other digital media solutions and learning possibilities that have the power to engage with young people at scale and unleash their power so they can lead the process of social change in their communities.
It sounds like all of you are doing such important work, but also this idea of creating specifically digital space, alternative spaces that are safe for especially young people to have discussions in a world where these spaces seem to be shrinking. Again, we could talk about that for ages. I hope Wilde Ganze and vice versa are noting down the things that we could talk about for ages so that we don't have to talk about them now. Because I promised you we'll start with why. So we've heard about the why from our three organizations. And now we're going, wider in the circles to talk about how and what. So we'll go back to you, Fadili. It was so nice to see your video with a young man in a pub in Cardiff, I assume?
Yeah.
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 When I first met you ages ago, 5 minutes ago, I said to you immediately, like, wow, Wales. Like, why are you in Wales? So can you tell us a little bit about the situation in Wales when it comes to supporting global issues? What's that like for you as a member of the diaspora community?
Thank you. We have. Within Wales, Sub-Saharan Advisory Panel has been involved in a Welsh government-funded initiative called Hub Cymru Africa, to which is a consortium of 4 organizations, including ours, to support the international solidarity movement. And we've been working for the last 7 years, since 2015. And within that, I think I can say over the last few years, I can definitely see a shift in terms of the support, global support, public support within Wales in terms of global solidarity, because I think there's a lot of presence, or there's a lot of conversations, I think, that are happening over the last few years within Wales, exactly what it means to be Welsh and what it means to be Welsh within a global context. And I think Brexit has accelerated in some ways those conversations, because all of a sudden, Welsh people are also looking inwardly to also, okay, what role do we play globally in many ways? And this is the irony, I guess, within it is the fact that out of the four nations within the UK, Wales was the one that voted the most in terms of Brexit. You know, I think they were the ones who sold the agenda or the idea, I guess, of getting out the European community. But in many ways, I think, and this is supported by a recent study that we did as part of Hub Coming Africa to look at public support, and Wales came at the very, very top in all four nations, and we're talking about at least 22% of the Welsh population, sorry, not 22, 60% of the Welsh population do support.
Brexit.
No. This is the recent one looking at public support for international solidarity.
Oh, okay.
And there was research that was done, and 60% of the population in Wales support global solidarity, or at least they're involved in some work to do with global solidarity.
That's more hopeful.
And that's higher compared to Scotland and England and Ireland as well, Northern Ireland. So in many ways, there is a lot of support for global solidarity. There are challenges, obviously. We're trying to find different ways of kind of creating those spaces to have more conversations with communities across Wales. And I think the support in many ways for me and how I feel within Wales, the support comes from the Welsh government itself. Mm-hmm. They have been the leading force in making sure that the conversation doesn't just remain within communities, but also they're taking initiative. A good example is just before we had the Sustainable Development Goals, the Welsh government had their own Future Generation Goals, they call them. And then within Future Generation Goals, they had one goal, which is specifically looking at Wales as a outward-looking nation. So in many ways, right now, we're in the process of unwrapping what that goal means. And I think communities are getting to understand exactly what it means to be Welsh, or an outward-looking Welsh person. Yeah. Which includes diaspora communities within it.
Exactly, because this is inclusive of diaspora communities. So that's also one of the things. So Wales is not only thinking global issues are important in the globe, but also this seems to be part of the Welsh identity that is inclusive of the African diaspora community that lives there. So you mobilize a lot of young people. Can you tell us a little bit how you do that?
It's putting young people in the lead, as simple as it sounds.
And diaspora, of course.
And diaspora, absolutely. And I think, within our organization, and I'm not talking lightly in many ways because it's the foundation of the organization itself, lived experiences, valuing lived experiences and valuing people's background, etc., is crucial. And I think going in tandem with that is also making sure those people with lived experiences are the ones in the lead. And as simple as that sounds, and I think there's many ways to unwrap, and I think the funders are using those languages and terminologies, but certainly, for me, or for my organization, when it comes to say we're putting people in the lead, is making sure that young people are involved from the initial steps of formulating a project or formulating ideas. And one example I can give is a recent project we did with National Museum Wales, where they had a problematic, I would say, portrait of a slave trader within the museum. And as things goes in 2021, Black Lives Matter, and then we had Colston happening in Bristol, and the museum was having conversation, what do we do about portrait? And they reached out to us, and they wanted to work with our young people, and it was very much from onset, them getting ideas, thoughts from our young people, not just kind of coming up with ideas or planting ideas into young people, but certainly making them lead the project throughout, which was a very challenging project because you're trying to address something which is very problematic. It touches into identity, touches into heritage. And what they did is giving a space for young people to flourish and come up with ideas on how do we address this problematic issue, which is a portrait. And within that, basically, it was meant to be like, I thought it was going to be a 6 month project, but became a 2-3 years project, actually, to which young people have led in every single step of the project. And that includes them commissioning the artists who are going to deliver the project, interviewing the artists themselves, coming up with all the publicity and marketing materials. It's everything. So yeah, so I think, I can't remember the question now anymore. But certainly putting people in the lead is...
How do you engage them? I mean,
Yeah.
Because that's what I was going to ask you now.
Yeah.
Is because it's not that easy what you say. It's not like you're sitting with a can of young people and then you open the can and then you say, here, museum, here's a can of young people and they're from the diaspora, work with them, right? Obviously, you have to mobilize them and then you have to connect them to the museum. And then you need the museum to trust these young people. And then you end up with a 2-3 year project that is inclusive of these young people. So how exactly are you doing this? And could you, people are sitting here with their pens and paper, you know? Can you give us some tips, you know?
Speak. Open conversations with the people that you're aiming to work with. I think crucially starting, and these are open, whether they're hard conversation, difficult conversations to have, but certainly being in that room and creating, I guess, a parity level of conversation where you are not coming in as a benefactor, so to speak, or you're coming in with someone who has certain privileges, is having those open conversations. So communication is central. I think we all kind of know some of these things, but certainly it comes down to how do you do it. Obviously, that's very subjective in some ways. It depends on how your communication skills are like, and how your approach, the tones, obviously, of how you're communicating with young people, understanding their language is really crucial. For diaspora communities, obviously, slightly different, working with young people. But for us, with diaspora communities, is creating spaces where diaspora communities feel comfortable to talk openly about things that affect them, but at the same time, in many ways, how they can be the lead for that change. And creating those safe spaces is difficult. It's one where we have to say it's only diaspora communities, for example, who are able to attend these spaces, and that's it. And within that, you know, they can come up with ideas, solutions, or ways to address things. I don't know if that helps at all, but certainly...
Definitely. No, I think you're saying, you're giving us quite some important input here, because I think one point is, you know, communicate. This is, you know, your husbands, your wives, your partners are telling you this at home as well. Communicate, please. Communicate clearly. So we have to do it in our work as well. But then also, while we should be open and connect and communicate, there also need to be spaces where people can speak safely and freely without consequence of you know, being seen a certain way or speaking on behalf of all blacks in the world. Those types of situations that can become quite unsafe. So that's, I think, for me, if I could write down, I would write it down. But so thank you so much for these tips, Fadili. We are going to move on to Jana. Because we have to mix it up to keep our panelists online with us. Jana, can you share a little bit about your work in Bulgaria with the Bulgarian society and how you mobilized people there?
We have many examples, and each of our approaches is different depending on the campaign. But for today, I chose one example specifically targeting refugees. I don't know whether we can bring it on the screen. Yes, thank you. So in Bulgaria, in general, hate speech is on the rise. And the three groups in the country that most often face hate speech are Roma, LGBTI people, and refugees and asylum seekers. And we have been targeting this issue you know, with overcoming negative stereotypes and targeting hate speech for the past 3 years through a variety of creative approaches, most of them very, very successful in terms of how they have been recognized by the public. But I really wanted to give an example of something we did recently, which is an edition of our experimental format of museums called Museum, which loosely can be translated like the Museum of Us. We just did 3 editions of this format on these 3 separate groups, Roma, LGBTI people, and refugees. To explain what this is, these are community curated pop-up museums, and it works like this. We go into a community and we only ask members of this community 2 questions: what makes you happy and what makes you sad? And then the members of this community respond to each question with an object and tell the story behind this object. And the museum, the physical museum, is the collection of all these objects and the extraordinary stories behind them. This is a series of, this format basically started as a series in 2019. And since then we've been applying it to, to different groups. Once again, this is an open licensed format, and everyone who wants to, apply it can just get in touch with us, and we just explain how it works. But here, what you see are examples of the responses of a little girl refugee, Margarita from Ukraine. So to the question, what makes you happy? She responded with this toy, and she said, after a month of war, my mother decided that we should leave. We left with a single suitcase. We just took the essentials, and I had so many favorite things that I wanted to take with me, but mom allowed me to take just one small toy, a teddy bear. And to the question, what makes you sad? She gave us this handful of earth and said, mom collected earth from our yard as a good omen and a memory of home, because we don't know when we're going to return. So these 2 objects and 90 more were exhibited in this museum. And this is just an example of a different approach, but also a space where we don't talk, and this was mentioned just now, we don't talk instead of others. We don't talk about others. We give the groups themselves the voice and the space, and they own their narrative, and the whole decision as to what goes in these museums and what are the stories told and what are the words used is entirely belongs to these groups. So I wanted just to share this as an example of a format that is very effective. The physical museum draws incredibly deep emotional responses from the public. I would say the online version as well, but not so powerful as to really connecting with the physical objects in a place. And this is just an example as to how we work. We do come up with with experimental formats. We apply them, we see what works, what doesn't, and maybe we change the things in the formats in the future, or we just entirely come up with new ways to work depending on the impact that we have had. I'll stop here.
No, but don't stop just yet, because I think this is very interesting, and that you took a museum form as a way to connect and engage and mobilize people. But earlier you were talking about the theory of hope, and starting from hope. Maybe you would like to tell us a little bit more about hope and how you use hope as an instrument to engage and mobilize people.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, everything we do is rooted in hope. As you see, even here, the question is not only what makes you sad. We give the opportunity for people to experience, the viewers to experience a shared humanity, the good and the bad, as we all have in our daily lives. Hope is extremely important. As I said, it's not just a feeling; it is a pragmatic strategy that is informed by neuroscience, by communications experts, by cognitive science, and this pragmatic strategy can be applied to any campaign. What does this mean? As a human rights movement, we very often do fear-based communications rather than hope-based communications. But fear-based communications are not effective anymore. And hope-based communications as a philosophy has been founded by Thomas Coombs, who is the ex-head of brand of Amnesty International. And it is also, when I talked about frustration, hope-based comms is also born out of Thomas's frustration and disillusionment with how human rights communication and campaigning are typically done. So basically a hope-based communication strategy, and this doesn't only refer to human rights communications and campaigning at all. This can be applied to any comms campaign, no matter by what kind of organization. It refers to making 5 basic shifts and in the way that we talk. And these shifts are from fear to hope, from problems to solutions, from against to for, from threat to opportunity, and from victim to hero. And like very briefly, I want to share the scientific insights that stand at the basis of of this philosophy, so that they can be understood better, but also they can be applied easier by anyone who is listening. So the reason why we need to focus more on solutions and not only on the problems is that the danger of focusing all our attention on the crisis is that, first of all, people could become immune to to this crisis. Also, when we focus on the problem, we reinforce it in the minds of our audience, and also the sense of a world in crisis typically pushes people into the hands of populists who offer them security and a return to some idealized past. The reason why we need to highlight more what we stand for and not what we oppose is similar. So let's say when we talk about the human rights movement, very often we hear the same kind of frames, which are journalism is not a crime, refugees are not criminals, abortion is not a crime. However, once again, like coming from science, it has been shown, let's say, in neuroscience, this kind of rhetoric fuses together the concepts of criminality and human rights in the minds of our audience, and also invites a debate, whether or not journalism is actually a crime. But the worst thing is that if we only talk in this way, we miss the chance to tell our audience what journalism, let's say, brings to our society and why it is important to protect it.
Yeah.
So and very just super briefly about the other, like when we talk the one that is opportunities to threats, it refers to like very often when we in the human rights movement we use language that is divisive. We use the language of conflict. However, successful movements are propelled forward by enthusiasm and passion, and we cannot generate this kind of lasting passion purely from outrage and disgust. So and there is one last thing I'm going to mention here is, and this is very key, we need to be showing that we got this, no matter what we are going through, we need to show that we got this, because these frames of crisis and peril can harm the perception of the movement's effectiveness, and people want to be part of something successful. So these are like the basis of why hope is important in our communications and campaigning.
Yeah, well, I see people still taking notes. Thank you for this crash course, this micro workshop on hope-based communication. I know the 5 things came by very fast. I tried to write them down. I'm gonna.
By the way, just to mention, anyone who is interested in this, just Google hope-based comms, and there is a fantastic, very deep guide called A Guide to Hope-Based Communications. Is going to pop up immediately when you write it.
A Guide to Hope-Based Communication. Google it.
It's brilliant. Read it. Everything that I mentioned, it's explained with examples there, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for that. I think that's 3 tips right there. Google A Guide to Hope-Based Communications, and you'll get all the parameters that she spoke about. But thank you so much for also highlighting to us why hope matters and how to use hope to engage people. Now, you've been sitting here listening, Surabi, for quite a while. Can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and how you engage people? And yeah, we can just...
Yeah, I mean, Hunaz did a very good job of actually explaining what RNW Media does, but I would say we really, what the panelists have said here as well is we really center young people at the core of what we do. And it's really important, as Fratelli was saying, that they really need to be at the center of whatever campaign that we are planning or the issues that we are talking about. It has to really come from them. And it really has to be about the stories that they want to share, the experiences that they want to share, the voices that matter to them, the stakeholders that they want to engage with. It really has to be about what young people envision for their future, how they articulate change for themselves, but also contextualize it. I think that's a really important part of the conversation as well. We have to understand what's the rootedness or physical, I mean, not just physical, but also social manifestation of where they're coming from. And I think context makes such a big difference. Often when we talk, sorry, just to finish on this thought, often when we talk about young people, we also tend to club them like they're a monolith, but they're not, right? So we really also have to understand what's the context that's driving them, what's their physical, material, social manifestation, and how that really impacts how we design and implement campaigns.
Yeah. No, and thank you so much for that. I just wanted to add, or as a question to add while you were telling us, the role of online spaces specifically, because that's what she was talking about earlier, Hunaz, the need for online spaces to be safe. But perhaps you can tell us also about the role online spaces create, the role they play in creating space for young people and their engagement.
Yeah, I think we are seeing from a lot of different examples that young people, I think one of the things that I really want to put forward is to trust young people. I think we often, so I come from a more abortion, reproductive justice background, where we often say that trust women. And I feel like that's a lens that we can also apply to the populations of young people that we work with, that you trust them, you listen to them, you really understand where they're coming from. And I think they have been at the forefront of really creating spaces for themselves online that they feel are safe. They also, they're hugely invested in privacy of those spaces. If they want anonymity, that they look out and secure that in the spaces that they're creating online. So I think campaigns can really become a vehicle to do that. And at RNW Media, I think we really try and listen to young people and understand what's that aspect of a campaign that will actually work for them? What's that aspect of the campaign that will actually enable them to create that space that they're looking for? And I think to also be really mindful, and we have heard this throughout the day, offline realities also shape online experiences of young people. And I think perhaps maybe also talk a bit more later about women's experiences in particular, but I think we really have to understand that it's not a binary in that sense, right? The offline is very much online. And if young people are experiencing those exclusions in their lives in different spaces, whether it's identity-based, whether it's economic-based, whether it's social stigma-based, those will also impact and shape their spaces online. So how do we also come up with strategies to implement or address those, the challenges that come on in the online spaces? I think that's super important. And we, again, have to go back to what Fratelli was saying, put them in the leadership position, listen to them and really center their stories and experiences on online spaces around their voices. Yeah.
I mean, this sounds like an incredibly dynamic process because indeed it's which young people, which online, how do you connect online and offline and the other way around? And there's near and far, right? So you're here in the Netherlands, and then you also have young people elsewhere. So are there ways in which you connect with people here in the Netherlands?
I think Hunaz has a really great example she has to share, so I'll hand over the mic to her.
Thank you, Surabi. Yeah, so I guess this is the topic of solidarity that we are talking about now, global solidarity, which is extremely important. But I want to start by saying that for us, it is really about making sure that there is awareness, common agenda, and action in online spaces. And what we want to see is movements forming that can drive social change. I will explain a bit more. So solidarity can take on many forms, right? And I think the power of social media in forming movements, but also creating solidarity is very clear. The best example of it would be the recent uprising in Iran. Because I'm from Iran, I have to make this example, that social media was instrumental to the movement, but also created solidarity globally. Videos of women coming out, cutting their hair every day, right? So as I said, for us, it's about creating that link between online spaces and offline. And I give you an example of a campaign that we recently ran in the Netherlands to create solidarity among Dutch youth on a number of human rights violations around the world. We wanted Dutch youth to know about these violations, come to stand in solidarity with them or with youth around the world, and demand better policies from their government. So the campaign picked 5 key moments in the Dutch calendar and connected them to prominent global human rights issues such as LGBT rights, gender-based violence, and freedom of speech. We worked with 5 Dutch influencers on Instagram with a massive follower base. And the idea was for us to pull stories from our communities on the ground under different challenges and then share these in form of videos with our influencers so they can post it then on their Instagram. And I will show you some of these videos in a minute. But just to explain a bit more, they ranged from for example, a gay couple from Kenya sharing their story of being gay in Kenya and how it is the difficulties of having a gay relationship in Kenya. Another young woman, for example, from Egypt shared an experience of domestic violence, or others talked about freedom of speech or access to jobs or other topics. So shall we first take a look at this video if possible, and then I will explain a bit more about the campaign.
Yes, let's do that.
Hey, we're from Kenya and we're in love. But being queer in Kenya could mean going to jail. Share our story and help us change that.
To me, human rights mean all people have the ability to express themselves freely.
To me, human rights mean having a job.
To me, human rights means knowing how to have safe and pleasurable sex.
To me, human rights mean being able to make a change in the world through my storytelling and campaigning.
Coucou tout le monde, nous jeunes du Mali menons une campagne dénommée Mali sans esclaves pour l'égalité et la justice sociale entre les communautés. Alors, aidez-nous à changer les choses en partageant notre histoire.
These are really very clear
very clear messaging.
messages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the point, to create clear messaging and put it out there and ask these influencers to share these stories on their Instagram with the hashtag #MyStoryForAStory. This was really amazing. They asked their followers to stand in solidarity with these people and acknowledge their hardship, really, and just what we called donate their story space. So share their stories online.
Yeah.
And the results were amazing. Thousands of posts and interactions, and our influencers then invited even the audience, so young people, to participate in polls and opinion polls and surveys, sharing their thoughts on possible solutions and forming demands, so organic demands towards representatives in the government.
Yeah.
This for me is the perfect example of creating solidarity around the world globally and engaging young people for social change.
Yeah.
Now I realize that I'm looking at the time and I realize it's very little time, but let me, Anna, if you don't mind, let me finish maybe with one ask to the audience.
Yes,
because,
do it. That will help us.
Thank you, thank you. There's one ask that I would like to share, and that is please understand the importance of online spaces in mobilizing and empowering young people. These online spaces, when managed well, can change the world for better. And every project designed to improve the lives of young people require a digital component. We have to acknowledge this in our policy making, but also, frankly, in our funding frameworks.
Yeah.
And I hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this ask. And I will now ask you if you have asks that you would, anything that you would like to ask the people here in the room or the people online as we draw to the close of our hours seem so short when you sit on a stage. Do you have an ask? Or maybe I can give you some time to think of an ask, and then we can see if online there's a burning question. No questions online. Then I think we must end our session here. But I want to just end with a few words, because I think to conclude, I think one of the things about engagement, whether online or in person, is that it has to happen together. It can't happen on behalf of anyone. It's a very dynamic thing. You can't go to a diaspora organization and ask them for some diaspora, or a youth organization and ask them for some youth. You do have to speak. You do have to exchange with each other. You have to be in contact, and you have to figure out how to do this contact, be it online or be it in person. And when we do communicate, as true as the hopelessness might feel, we do have to use hope, because that is effective. So I took some notes. I don't think I will be able to read them. So I hope you took better notes. Perhaps there's a recording of this session that can be found online. Yes. So if you want to hear the tips that have been shared again, please play it online. If you want to get in touch with our speakers, they are here, and some of them are online. And if you want to find them online, start taking online spaces seriously. So thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the rest of the festival. And I think you can go to another.